I'll provide a brief technical overview. Please come in and have a seat. Mostly for you on Zoom, but also for some others. If you're participating remotely, sign on with your phone or your computer, not both. If you're on Zoom, please stay muted unless you're speaking. If you've signed on with anything other than your first and last name, please change it to Zoom so we can know who you are. For Zoom attendees, please be advised that questions on chat may not be answered. So if someone wishes to take on the task of speaking for the person chatting, they're welcome to do that. The democratic rules of order can be found at the link provided in the agenda. It's www.democraticrules.com. And a flowchart and downloadable summary of the rules can be found in the right margin there. Everybody on Zoom and in the room, please raise your hand to speak to a motion or participate in open discussion, and then lower your hand after you've been recognized or if you no longer need to speak. When you raise your hand, it may also help if you state in the chat that your hand is raised. If you're speaking in person, please identify yourself the first time you're recognized to speak. Are there any questions? By our bylaws, we begin each meeting with a land acknowledgement. And I've asked Michael Laurie to read the land acknowledgement. And would you step up here, please, and read that, Michael?
So do you want me to read the whole thing?
Just the one you picked.
Oh, okay.
You have several to choose from.
We acknowledge the people of the Puyallup tribe and that we are on their traditional land. We gratefully honor the Puyallup and commit to building relationships with the homelands of the Puyallup tribe. We commit to stewarding the land in partnership and preventing the erasure of the bullshoot seed, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, language and the history of the Puyallup people.
Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you.
I'll offer a few words regarding rules of conduct. The council is committed to conducting its meetings in a civil, respectful, and courteous manner. We expect all participants to demonstrate common courtesy and respect toward fellow islanders and guests. As we build our new council, we are dedicated to creating a safe and healing space to address our shared interests. Rudeness, personal criticism, and ridicule, including in online chat contributions, are not acceptable and will not be tolerated. Please keep your remarks focused on the issues, not on individuals. We are here because we're stronger together. And as is our tradition, please raise your hand to show your intent to honor these rules of conduct. Thank you. We'll now finalize the agenda for this special meeting. Because it's a special meeting, we're limited in our formal business and discussion to the item for which it was called, which is to continue our consideration of the King County Strategic Climate Action Plan proposal, specifically the amendments that are being proposed by the Vashon-Maury Climate Action Planning Group. Are there any suggestions for revising this in some way, even though we're limited to that? Yes, please.
I'm Jeff Schultz, and I'd just like to say that, you know, we've got 13 amendments here on this list. And I would put on the top of the list, stop population growth. That'll do more for cooling off the planet than anything else we can do.
Thank you for that. We don't have to revise the agenda to include that. When we come to consideration, you can make that as an amendment. And then if that's seconded, we'll discuss it and adopt it or not as the council so decides. Thank you.
Agenda.
Yes.
Sorry.
Very well. All those in favor of adopting this agenda, please raise your hands.
That's what I have here, right? Okay.
Did you get 20? Oh,
19 in the room.
also, I didn't get to this yet, but you only vote if you're a council member. If you're a guest, you're welcome to participate in the discussion, but voting is for council members, and we use the good faith principle on that. So we got different counts, so please be so kind as to raise your hands again.
Wait, is this for everybody or is it?
This is for the council, it's a formal vote, so it's just for council members.
At 18 plus 11.
It's 11. 29. And all opposed? No, I saw none in opposition, but people are just slow and lowering their hands. I thought. As I was saying, only members can vote. If you've recently joined, you'll know your membership has been processed if you've received a welcome email from Debbie Jackson. As we work with the proposal tonight, it's a main motion, and as I was saying a minute ago, people can move to have amendments, and if they're seconded, then we'll consider each amendment in turn. There can only be one amendment on the floor. By our procedure, we don't have amendments to amendments. It's just another amendment. You reject the first one and we'll consider the second one. And by movers' privileges, in this instance, Kevin Jones moved this motion. He's got the right to suggest revising it at the outset based on feedback that he's gotten. And then if there's not more than one objection, then we'll just go ahead with that as a new motion. If there are two or more objections, then it'll be just a regular motion to amend it like that. And we'll have discussion and come to a vote, just like any other amendment. Anyone can rise to a point of order at any time, which is if there's a procedural issue, like if you think somebody is not keeping good order, or if I'm not conducting the meeting right, if something's out of order in terms of procedure, you can make a rise to a point of order here or on Zoom, and that interrupts the proceedings, and we deal with that point of order, whatever it might be, and ultimately the council decides if it's necessary whether or not to sustain that point of order or not and change the way we're doing things. It might just be a matter of clarification, or I might just say, you're right, I'll do that. We'll see when it gets to that, but in all things in our organization, the council is the ultimate authority. Are there any questions? Very well. Now we'll move on to the business of the special meeting of the council members, which is continuing consideration of the motion to urge King County to adopt certain Vashon-Maury related components of the climate action plan. Kevin Jones, as I said, is the mover of this, and he's got a rather extended introduction that he has prepared, providing context and some information for you. I'll invite Kevin forward at this time to take a seat and make that presentation.
Thank you, JC. Thanks for showing up on a beautiful day on Vashon to talk about climate and actions that we can take here to protect our communities and ourselves. I think there's several you've heard the word Climate Action Planning Group, and there's a number of folks here in the room who helped assemble the elements of this motion. I'd like to take the opportunity to let them introduce themselves, if that would be okay. So Steve, could I call upon you to start
I'm
that?
Steve Berkman, and I am a geologist, and I live in Ellisport. I've lived there for the last 10 years, part of the planning committee.
And part of Zero Waste Vashon as well.
Also on the board of Zero Waste Vashon, but I'm not representing Zero Waste Vashon.
Good point. Thank you. Rob?
I'm Rob Briggs. I'm a 9-year resident of Vashon. I'm a retired research scientist, formerly with the Pacific Northwest Center.
Eric?
Eric Walker, 30+ year resident of Vashon, been on the north end. I have been very active in seeking and winning grants to help the Methodist Church go solar and storage of batteries and help become a resilient hub. So my input on the group was to make sure the resilience hub really King County Lake, which was helpful for us on Vashon.
Okay, thanks, guys. Is James Ricard on Zoom by chance? I think so. James Ricard is on Zoom. James, would you like to introduce
Yeah.
yourself?
Good evening. My name is James Ricard. I've been living on the island for almost 6 years now, right off of Judd Creek, and quickly became involved in the Climate Action Planning Group, finding Vashon Island to be a location that could serve as a role model for not only King County and Washington State, but the country and potentially the world for how we can address climate change and take action to improve the climate. Thank you.
Thank you, James. I'm Kevin Jones. I'm the liaison, volunteer liaison to the Vashon-Maury Community Council for Environment and Climate sector, is the right word. I've been working on environment policy support since I retired in 2015. Notably, we supported the Clean Energy Transformation Act, which means at the end of this year, when you turn on the lights, you do not turn on a coal plant. We also have been working on as Eric mentioned, the Resilience Hub has identified Vashon as a pilot program for Resilience Hub in King County, along with Skokomish County. So those are the activities that I've been investing a lot of my time and energy in. So appreciate the opportunity to be here and to talk about this. I see Melvin has his hand up on Zoom. I don't know if he just didn't put it down for.
Yeah, he's asking about making it so that they can see the speaker.
Okay, you're working on that? Okay, thank you, Nicole.
It's
The camera's behind you.
yeah.
Yes,
Unfortunately, we have to choose.
this is a challenge. I could sit off to the side. That works. Should we address that or should we just press? I'll let you guys, it's your meeting.
Kevin, if you'd like, you could move your chair up there and turn your head back. We're experimenting with different ways to solve this configuration problem, and we haven't really yet.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to be able to have some paper to write notes on, so apologies, Melvin. I'd like to clarify a couple of things before we get started. We're here to discuss the words in this motion that is on the screen. We provided additional information about what we, the Climate Action Planning Group, had submitted to King County. Those words are not in the motion. Those were for your consideration of the types of things that we have been in discussion with to sort of frame the art of the possible. But we're here today to focus on the words in the motion. If you want to add, delete, or modify the words, I think that's the purpose for us here. These are intentionally less detailed because the council only has a certain amount of time, and I'm sure it would take somewhere 20 to 30 hours to go through each item in detail if we were to look at every single word in the detailed inputs we provided. So I'm sure nobody would really want to buy into that except for a few crazy people like us. Let's see. I think also there's a sort of a set of beliefs that really motivate us to take this action that we have. First of all, we think we're in the midst of an ongoing and accelerating climate crisis. The climate crisis is now being made worse by some segments of our government acting to remove pro-climate policies. Prior climate action plans have not been as aggressive as needed to address the climate crisis. Most climate plans fail to achieve the goals that they strive to accomplish. As a consequence, the King County Strategic Climate Action Plan should include sufficient action steps to overachieve on our climate goals so that we do not fail to meet them in the end. In the face of an existential crisis, the most effective strategy should be to continue pursuing any and all policies to achieve success, because the societal cost of doing nothing immeasurably exceeds the cost of addressing the climate crisis. Our current climate policy pathway almost guarantees that we will be forced to pay substantial future societal, environmental, and monetary costs. We believe it's in all of our best interests to invest now in the fullest measure to mitigate those future harms, to preserve our ability to survive and thrive on this, the only planet that most of us will ever inhabit. At this point, I recommend we step through each item in the motion with a brief description and allow people to ask questions of clarification and suggest if there's any adjustments that people propose making to the motion. And Jeff, I heard what you had to say. I suspect anybody can make a motion at any time.
Well, I think what
raise a
I
question.
suggest that we
I would like to look at.
go through the ones we have here and then open the floor for amendments to make addition.
That's what I prefer. So why don't we go ahead and take that path?
Well, what about the new motion? Do you want to make a motion to revise it beforehand or?
Oh, thank you, Nicole. We have, as JC mentioned, we've had feedback from a number of folks. And so we made some minor adjustments to the motion that was actually read into the record last time. And so I would move that the items in, there's a version that has yellow shading. And I would recommend that, I would move that we go ahead and proceed with discussing this motion, which is basically a set of friendly amendments to the originally proposed.
That's fine. I'm taking these as amendments made with movers' privilege. We'll consider them. And then if there's more than one objection, we'll just treat it as a regular amendment. But if there's not, then we'll just accept this as the main motion. So they're pretty straightforward. In number 9, add the phrase "and vehicle." To delete number 11. And in 13, you see is add this parenthetical clause, collections of small power resources. Oh, well, I'll read the whole thing. Included virtual power plants, parenthetically, collection of small power resources such as solar collectors, batteries, backup generators, and interruptible loads that can be managed to provide reliable grid power at lower cost. That's the addition.
And
As a future-ready infrastructure option, etc.
just one point there. People asked last time, what is a virtual power plant? So that is the description that we added. So that's the purpose of adding it. Okay, I'm hearing no objections to moving forward.
Virtual. So. This one has works out.
Speaking as a person who's published on this matter since 2002, nationally, internationally, a virtual power plant is correctly described in this parenthetical. A virtual power plant is basically the coordination of small distributed power systems to operate power suppliers or power plants, such as solar systems described here, coordinated through communication in order to act as a aggregated large power supply. Is that a good description?
So what you're saying is these, your ability to produce power and feed it into the grid, that is a virtual.
It's coordination of multiple small power plants so that you can leverage the market effectively and behave in a way that is most advantageous to the larger power system. It's a coordination of individual power systems. This is done regularly now with solar. I think I should probably excuse myself. Sorry.
Thank you, David.
And so if I understand this right, it's virtual in the sense that it's not like just this power plant, as we usually think of a power plant. It's a bunch of little power generators that are through computers combined to act as if it were a power plant.
A larger power plant, yes, and coordination of small sources to act as an aggregator and insert itself in the power system coordinated by the larger power system.
Thank you. Does that answer your question? Um,
more or less.
Yeah, Greg? Were you raising your hand?
Yeah, I'm Bill Miller.
Oh, Bill, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna save myself a lot of time because I came prepared to argue against item number 11. This has been deleted. I still appreciate it if we can have brief discussion of it as to why you deleted it, and maybe I could give you my arguments as to why I wanted it to be. Even though I guess we don't need to vote on it.
Well,
think it's a.
I suggest we defer.
I'm not inclined to let you regrettably state your carefully prepared arguments, but I will invite Kevin to make a brief remark as to what prompted the deletion.
There's some potentially complex policy content behind number 11. The general theme was that it's important to, as we shift away from fossil fuels to renewable and distributed energy systems, like we just talked about virtual power plants, there's many of them in different locations. That becomes a land use question. And the idea that what's the highest and best use of the land we have to support addressing the climate crisis. And so reforesting was one typical method, and solar panels and solar installations is another. Wind is another, but not terribly favorable for the island. But the ability to really describe all of that and to try to summarize it in this statement was not really feasible in the time that we have.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
I just have a supplemental consideration,
please.
and that's that with climate change, one of the things we're really going to see is a change to our rainfall, to our patterns, to the frequency, to the intensity, which is going to impact our groundwater supplies. That affects our ability to have sustainable communities as our aquifer shrinks. And as stream flows fall off, it affects the ability for streams to have life. So I see that missing. So I just sketched out a quick idea that I'd like to offer, if that's okay.
Well, a later point not be, but thank you. We'll have an opportunity later for additions.
Great.
Right now, the order of business is just to accept or not these friendly amendments. Have this be our main motion. Is there objection to doing that? Raise your hand on Zoom if you object. Well, okay, seeing no objections, this will be our main motion now. And now we can turn to moving, let's call it stage one, is moving through these one by one. We have a lot to get through in a limited amount of time. So I ask you to keep your remarks concise. But that said, we'll discuss each one as warranted. And then we will, in stage two, consider any other amendments to the motion, which might be adding other things. And then stage three is deciding what to do next. We haven't really decided who to read these things. Shall I do it, or would you like to, Jen? Would you like to read them one at a time?
Well, it might be better if I don't, so that I could focus on writing.
Okay, very well.
And I have them here too. I could read if you like. Either way, JC.
Why don't you do it, Kevin?
Okay. Just a preamble, addressing the climate crisis is an important priority for Vashon-Maury Islanders. The Vashon-Maury Community Council therefore moves that the King County Strategic Climate Action Plan include these actions in the final King County Strategic Climate Action Plan. The first item is work with state agencies to incentivize Washington State Ferry commuters to use more climate-friendly transportation options through fares and priority loading procedures. People have any questions?
Yes, Bill?
Yeah, Bill Noah again. I mean, it's a worthy goal, but I think it's a little bit elitist if it's going to give priority to people who can afford electric cars and hybrid cars. I think we have a lot of working people who doing construction work or working at the factory who need to commute to work and can only afford an old car, and to put them at the end of the line on the ferry when there's a long line and they may not be able to get to work, I just think is unfair. I think, you know, I'm all for more climate friendly vehicles, but I don't think prioritizing ferry lines or fares is the way to do it.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah,
Kevin, would you please address that? I in fact asked you about that, and the council, I'm sure, would like to hear your response.
So this is not recommending any one particular policy. This is recommending that King County pay attention to the ability to influence commuter behavior based on the fact that about 40% of the Washington State ferry traffic, the largest ferry system in the world, goes in and out of King County. We know that the King County Action Plan has a major focus on frontline communities. They have an entire equity section review of the Climate Action Plan. That's an entire separate review. We've been in the 3 public meetings. We met the people who focus on that. So yes, could there be possible negative consequences of any step forward? There could be. Do I think that that's a likely outcome? I don't think it is. So in other words, we think there's a lot of latitude. This question basically says, do we think it makes sense for King County to ignore that opportunity to influence commuter behavior, or to start some conversations about how to use that ferry system to influence user behavior by creating incentives? Will they be fair? We have to trust that the government would. Would there be public review? Absolutely. Right, so we'd have that opportunity. We're not specifying anything that would disadvantage any particular one person. We're just saying that the conversation should be part of the action plan, because today the action plan doesn't meet the goals. And the people that we're trying to protect may indeed suffer even worse consequences, because the people who are typically have less financial means are also those who are most likely to bear the greatest burden of the climate crisis. Rising food prices, temperature extremes, hot or cold, potential loss of life if they don't have the right kind of shelters. So, the cost of doing nothing is substantial and needs to be considered.
Thank you, Kevin. So for the discussion, yes, sir.
I've long thought that, when you get on the ferry, they have some kind of laser measuring system. And when you drive your car to the toll booth, it measures your car and you pay by the foot of vehicle length. And regardless of your age or anything else, you pay for how much room you're gonna take on the boat. And your ferry fare is established based on the length of your vehicle.
That's one possibility. Yeah, we've talked.
That'd be fair enough if you drive a
Thank you. Let's have the discussion.
Okay.
If you'd like to discuss on Zoom, just raise your hand. I want to lag a little bit to make sure everybody has a chance.
Good idea.
Seeing none, we'll move on to number 2.
on that particular one, I would move to strike as an amendment.
Right now, I'd like to just go through all of them and consider that as a possible amendment in stage 2. Thank you. Read number 2.
Okay, item number 2, electrify the Seattle-Vashon route water taxis.
Is there a discussion of this? Perhaps for each of these, somebody who's on the committee could make a little initial statement in favor and tell us what your rationale was briefly. Is there someone on the committee who'd like to do that?
Yeah.
Rob.
Rob Riggs, we understand that the county is considering and making active steps to electrify the Seattle, the West Seattle run, which is about half the distance of the Vashon run. The issue in their caution in applying the Vashon run in the consideration of electrifying is one of adequate batteries to get there and charging infrastructure. What we're seeing internationally is plummeting costs and increases in the capacity. This is a 5-year plan. They should be looking forward and thinking about electrifying both routes. And this is an opportunity to replace diesel ferries that put out a lot of emissions with basically emission-free transportation. So I think just looking forward in the trajectory of the electrified roads, that they really should have this on the radar screen and be planning for the charging infrastructure necessary to make this possible.
Thank you, Rob. Further discussion? Yes, Doug?
I just have one question. How much would this cost?
From what I understand, the cost of operations are about 40%. Roughly of diesel. These are cost effective if you can.
But there's the cost of the.
I do not know what a quote would be for a simple bus. All right.
We compare, we like to think about the cost of doing something against the cost of doing nothing, which we think is pretty severe.
Sorry, but
We like to consider the cost of doing something against the cost of doing nothing.
well, an alternative would
Just
be
me.
to eliminate the passenger ferries. That would advance climate change quite a bit.
Yeah, it would.
I agree. I agree. Furthermore, may I say?
Yes, please.
Furthermore, I didn't want the foot passenger ferry when they first put it to us in 1990. I didn't want the impact that it would have on Vashon Island. I believe that it's attracting people with a lot of money with cush jobs in downtown Seattle. It gives them, you know, a special ride to Vashon. We don't need the boat because you can ride a ferry to Fauntleroy and catch a Sea Line bus downtown, which I usually do. But I think the worst of it is King County is subsidizing this water taxi to the tune of millions, more so than they pay for our road crews here. And then when the gentrification happens to Vashon, King County comes in and says, well, we're gonna provide low income housing. So they'll spend millions more. So I've been opposed to this foot ferry water taxi for the last 35 years. I don't like it. It'd be better just not to have.
Okay, thank you. Is there further discussion? Yeah, David?
Speaking strictly from the perspective of climate impact, I believe this will be a high impact solution. While I appreciate the issue of gentrification, the simple fact is people do work in Seattle, have always worked in Seattle, including yourself, and live on Vashon. So they choose to commute. This is a much more efficient way to commute. And moving from fuel-based to electric-based power is a huge stride towards reducing climate impact. So yes, there are costs associated with it, and yes, there are impacts associated with it. But speaking for myself, as a person who made my living working for the city of Seattle, and I think you also worked in Seattle, and most of us did work in Seattle at one point or another, I think it's really important to be realistic about who we are, where we are, and what the future looks like. The future looks like people living here who work in Seattle and Tacoma. And making that transit efficient is reasonable. Closing the doors is simply the most elitist approach that we could take and say, we're here, we're done. You're not invited to join us on Vashon. I feel fairly passionately about that. We're invaders, we took this land. The least we can do is to share it with our children and their children. And the fact is, those people will not necessarily work on Vashon all the time.
Thank you, David. Is there further discussion?
I just have to say one thing,
Yes, please.
as a user of the passenger ferry for years, as a public health employee, it helped me get to work every day, which also brought my income back to the island, where I was able to support island community in my capacity. So I think there's a, when we talk about, different levels of transportation back and forth between, our Puget Sound area, we have to look at, like, yes, there are different ways of getting me, maybe just on the Washington State ferries and taking buses, and other ways of getting back and forth into our, our work that also brings those funds back to our community on that front.
Thank you. What is your name, please?
Rebecca,
Thank you, Rebecca. Is there further discussion? Very well, read number 3.7.
We ask King County to advocate for policies that support development of private community solar installations, extend net metering of rooftop solar, and expedite rooftop solar building permits, and limit the property tax increases due to solar system installation.
And is there someone from the group that would like to speak to this?
Maybe, I know, Steve, you've looked at quite a bit of solar on Vashon, so.
So right now, there are close to 600 solar installations on Vashon. We generate about 6% of our electricity using solar. And we've doubled the solar installations in the last 5 years, which is just fantastic. If we were a city, we would be in the top 10 solar installations by power generation in the country. We're on par with the per capita solar generation with Hawaii. And yet we're at 47 parallel. But there's a lot of policy barriers to increasing more solar on the island when it's a very reasonable way to decrease and decarbonize our electric system. And this is one solution, we think, is to increase the potential for community solar that is now prohibited by PSC the way the law is written. And we need to change the policy.
Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. In the back, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm Jen Huntley.
Hi, Jen.
I'm just curious why we're just saying advocate for policies. Why not say implement policies?
Because some of the policies are not within the authority of King County to do. So we're asking them to advocate to change some state law, for example. And if you read their climate action plan, there's a number of pages that talk about King County is like the 4th largest county in the world, and we advocate across all kinds of different agencies to achieve these kinds of success.
Yeah, I just wanted to be really clear that you're not actually asking for those policy changes, you're just asking them to ask for policy changes, right?
We are striving that they achieve the policy changes through advocacy.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Bill.
Just as a point of information, could one of you explain what is the state law that's prohibiting or impeding personal solar systems? You mentioned that there's a state law that needs to be changed.
Yeah, the big problem is with billing, in order for people to sign up for community solar, it turns out they really want to be able to have that just show up on their usual utility bills, so they don't have multiple bills that they have to pay. So having a utility that does the billing, accept the community solar and integrate that in the system is really one of the major challenges. I think there are a few more of this, a fairly minor one. So if PSC were in love with having community solar on Vashon, then we'd be great, but they are resistant to it. I welcome others pushing this to.
By community solar, you mean like a solar generation facility that then ties into the grid for everybody versus the homeowners individual?
Yeah, currently,
Am I right?
an individual homeowner is not rewarded for any solar power that they produce in excess of what they use. You can generate it, it goes into your neighbors, it goes to the system, but you have no reward for it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that, for various reasons, they're renters, they live on a shady lot, the house, they're gonna sell the house, or it's oriented unfavorably for solar. Solar on their roof doesn't make sense, but if there's somebody that has a big roof that has extra space that could have solar collectors, then if they could enter into a solar community solar program, then that would be available to the community. So I hope that answers your question.
I think so, yeah.
Thank you, Rob. Yes, sir.
I'd like to suggest that we advocate for an electric an electricity market, if you will. So if you hook up to the grid and use electricity, you pay for the electricity. If you generate electricity, you can sell it into the grid at the market price for whatever electricity is worth.
I believe the system does that now.
That's a.
Inbound, that's effectively through net metering is a retail transaction for credit. However, it's limited on a yearly basis. You can't accumulate a net metering. Each year is zeroed out. And it's bounded by size and all kinds of administrative rules. I think the gist of this recommendation is that those rules be liberalized in such a way that the resource can be shared across multiple properties. The details are really complex and heavy policy, and I'm not even in a position to be able to say exactly how it's all playing out in the Public Utilities Commission. The WUTC, our Public Utilities Commission, is largely handling this. It's complex. I think it is worth advocating for sharing solar resources among us.
And currently the action plan is silent on this issue. So we want to have the conversation and make sure that King County sees this as an opportunity to achieve the climate goals that they set for themselves.
Thank you, Kevin. So further discussion on Zoom? Very well, let's move on to number 4.
Reduce wildfire risk by encouraging electric utilities to expedite undergrounding or on-grounding of electric power lines. I'll speak to this briefly.
Please.
Puget Sound Energy has identified a program to shut off our power because of the concern that we could cause a wildfire based on the sparks that could come from the electrical grid. The south half of Vashon and almost all of Maury Island is at the top of the wildfire risk due to power lines in PSC's analysis. It is not a minor problem. King County we would advocate that King County address that risk in a way to try to minimize the likelihood of fires caused by the electrical grid. And right now, they are putting in tree wire. That's a good step. They're planning to shut off our power if conditions get bad enough. What that means is most people on Vashon will lose their water. You lose your cooling. And of course, with a virtual power plant, you have solar panels and batteries. You might be able to have some power for a while, as long as the sun is out. So these things all thread together. But that's the rationale, is that we think King County should be advocates for improving the safety of the electric grid and hopefully keeping the power on, allowing us to cool ourselves in the heat of the day during the heat domes, and people who rely on electricity for life-saving, sustaining medical equipment wouldn't have to go through the risk of that equipment not being available to them.
Thank you. Kevin, is there discussion of item number 4? Yes, Jen?
Yes. I don't know if this is the right place to bring this up actually, but when I read this point, what came into my mind is if King County could underground the power lines, a potential piggyback that I think is really essential here is to get meaningful bike lanes installed, because even for people who have electric bikes, it's very, I mean, unless you're a hardcore cyclist, for me, it's terrifying to consider hiking up and down the freeway, just the highway, just because of the way people drive and the size of cars. But if we had meaningful dedicated bike lanes for little old ladies and their other bikes, then presumably that could really impact travel around line.
You'll be happy to know that the Climate Action Plan has a lot of emphasis on alternate means of driving, including bicycle lanes, walking, and trails. Yeah. So that's why we don't comment on that, because we feel that they're moving in that direction.
Well, it's just kind of like a practical thing. If you're going to do it
Right on,
anyway, in that right way is there. Seems that could be
Thank you.
2 for 1.
Yes, Steve?
I'd just like to add that 41 of PSC's electrical lines have already been underground in the past. So they've made significant progress, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. And so we're just asking them to finish the job.
29% to be exact.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, sir.
I'm concerned about the wildfire risk in general. You know, I live in the woods and, you know, there's, 120-foot tall trees all around me and just forest. And, I don't know what a forest fire would look like on Vashon. I've been here for 59 years and I have not seen any significant forest fire on Vashon Island. But if we did get a wildfire, do we have fire lines? What's our firefighting capability? How do we deal with the possibility of having a wildfire here?
Could I say,
Okay.
That's a huge.
could I say that it's a great conversation, but not relative to the motion?
Yes, that is a very important conversation that we'll be picking up in another meeting. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yes.
Other discussion on item 4?
I live in those same trees, Jeff, just south of you about a mile.
Seeing none, we'll move on to item 5.
Implement the Metro Flex on-demand transit service on Vashon-Maury Islands.
Would one of you like to tell us what that is?
Councilmember Mosqueda actually ran on this idea that you could have small regional transit hubs so that you can get to the main transit line without having to drive your car to a park and ride lot. When you try to synchronize transit, you have to put together, the bus system, the ferry system gets complicated. Most people, it's like, I'll just drive to the north end. So trying to make that more convenient for people to leave their cars at home would be, this would be a step in that direction.
And how would that work in practice? What would that look like?
It's an existing program. It doesn't exist on Vashon. And so it is an on-demand. You call for the resource and they have service that would come and pick you up based on the call and their capacity.
Okay, thank you. Is there discussion? David?
Potential friendly amendment would be, I don't know if that's appropriate here, it would be to coordinate with the school district to integrate school busing with this system.
Yeah.
For years and years, I've observed the school buses go around largely empty. And it's always struck me that, in a lot of other countries, kids get on public buses, they ride to school. It's just, I think there's a huge, if you look at the school's budget, the amount of money that's spent on transportation busing is really a major piece of their budget, sadly. And very few people take advantage of it, most of them private kids. So if there were just a few words that could say, encourage a possibility of coordination with the school bus. I don't know if it's practical. You can strike this one.
Thank you, David. Is there further discussion? Item 5, yes.
Can anybody ride the school buses?
I think that's what he was advocating for.
I'm advocating a change.
They use the school buses for events during the summertime, so there's.
That's different.
I think
Okay, Jenny?
we're talking about King County, we're not talking about the school district.
Right.
So what can King County implement or advocate for? Are we asking King County to advocate for the school districts, tie their transportation to this system?
Just a coordination study.
Is that something that King County has leverage to do? Or should we be going directly to the schools?
We need new solutions.
Thank you, Jenny. Is there further discussion? Yes?
Yeah, if King County were to come up with, I guess, what are you gonna have, like minivans that King County would own and operate, drive around, and pick people up and look around? I mean, why not just have taxi service on that? Just get some people that, have a vehicle and they can drive it about, pick people up and get them on a ride somewhere. For a hitchhike.
Well, how's that meaningfully different?
What, taxi versus, well, if it's a taxi service, King County doesn't have to pay for it.
You have to pay for it.
Well, yeah, you get in a cab and pay somebody to give you a ride.
I'll just thank you for that. Transportation is a huge issue for our community. And that's something we're going to be giving increasing attention to. It is my hope that we will have a transportation advisory committee formed, but that's going to take people stepping up to be chair and secretary for that, as well as community members. So if you have a special interest in transportation and would like to delve into these matters more in depth, please get in touch with us, and we'll try and form this committee as soon as there's sufficient interest expressed from the council and other interested parties. Yes, Steve?
Yeah, I'll just note that Jenna from Ellisport has Vashon Rides, which is a taxi service on the island that exists. She's had it for about 4 or 5 years now. So we do have a taxi service in the island now. You call and get a ride.
Thank you, Steve. Is there further discussion of item 5? Seeing none, we'll move on to 6.
Include programs that advance the production and use of biochar, and I would call, I think, on Steve to say why that's, or Rob, I know you guys both worked on it. Okay.
Rob, will you tell us about the chart?
For people that don't know what biochar is, you take plant material, tree limbs, and in a process called pyrolysis, you heat the material to a temperature of 400 to 700 C, and you create charcoal, and that becomes a very helpful soil amendment. It basically improves the structure of the soil. It helps the availability of soil nutrients for plant growth. It helps with water retention in the soil. And it also is, it turns out, very helpful to composting and in making the compost develop more quickly and eliminate greenhouse gas emissions. There can be methane that forms from a composting process. We believe this is would be really valuable, particularly for the soil types that we have here on the island, which are generally lacking in carbon. And so we think it's a good fit with what's going on in plans for the compost facility at the transfer site. It is absent from the current strategic county plan. So we just think it's a huge opportunity. One really important aspect of it is that it takes carbon from plant materials and puts it in the soil where it's been shown to be permanent, relatively permanent, hundreds of thousands of years. Evidence shows, so this is a good way to sequester carbon.
So I'm going to take all of my Scotch broom and blackberries and turn it into biochar, which also helps recharge the aquifer. Is that right, Rob? Helping with the groundwater absorption into the ground?
And
That's a good question. Is it small pieces or?
Yeah,
is it to be- it needs to be like larger pieces.
You grind it up. You grind it up.
But larger pieces with it, that, like you're talking about Scotch broom or smaller pieces that maybe just go up into the environment more.
Yeah, we would recommend that the invasive products that we have on this island, this would be a great use of those invasives to use them to make biochar. So you get a win-win. And there's plenty of organics on the island with all the tree trimming and with all the downed trees. Right now, we're going to be hopefully using a lot of organic waste at the Vashon transfer station for the new organic facility that is being built. It's in the planning stages right now. It's been approved, $5 million. It's been approved by the county to build this. And so we think that to have a complementary biochar element to that, you only need 5 to 10% biochar in the soil to really improve the productivity of the soil. And our glacial till and hard pan that we have are devoid of organics. And so we really need more organics added to the soil to increase the productivity.
There's a
The corner here.
The question on that, the cost and the emissions from burning this. Creation values are saying, take it from what you're saying, not as.
So,
They
yeah, that's costs.
Yeah.
It's the anaerobic
You
process,
deprive it of oxygen, that's part of what creates.
so there's no heat used to.
There is heat, but it's in a closed environment.
And you can use some of the off-gassing to keep the pyrolysis.
So it's closed loop.
You can, the net sequestration of carbon. In the whole life cycle.
There will be some that has to be released at some point. It's not completely.
Over hundreds to thousands of years.
We're saying no, that is what's so amazing about it.
It is
It
amazing.
traps that carbon because you are no longer providing oxygen to create CO2, which is the byproduct of normal combustion. So this is a closed loop.
Thank you, Greg. Nicole, did you have something?
Yes, there's two comments now. Bev says, I was not aware of biochar until I saw this document. As I read about it, I discovered there's controversy about it and I'm uncomfortable with the council supporting this approach before the community has an opportunity to understand the controversy and be aware of how Vashon would address the negative aspects of biochar. And Melvin asks what the energy sources are used to create biochar.
Would anyone like to address those particulars?
Yeah, so the energy comes from the biomass that's used in the pyrolysis process. It's often, that heat can be harvested in a lot of biochar operations, actually make electricity. So, that's what heat comes from.
Thank you. David?
Yeah, I published a report with a number of students at Washington University on this topic 3 years ago under the funding from US DOE and US Forest Service, basically on biochar and energy production systems. So I'm fairly familiar, and all these statements are basically correct. Correctly combusted, there's very little emissions. Basically what happens is you take the woody material, you grind it, you put it in a pyrolysis process, which is self-combusting, but all you're combusting is where it's called the volatiles, the oils and so forth that are in the wood, and you're leaving the carbon as much as possible by limiting the combustion process and controlling it carefully. The major takeaway here is if it's properly operated, it's going to be like a very clean wood fire, in essence. I mean, there are emissions, but they can certainly be managed very well. But the real takeaway here, and I think that's the point these folks are making, is once that carbon is committed to the earth, this is by far the lowest way of actually doing carbon removal from the atmosphere. It is so much cheaper than any other way of taking carbon out of the atmosphere that it doesn't even compare. And there are international consortia that are buying basically this method of committing carbon to the earth. The fact that it also supports, a soil augmentation is a huge benefit. But from the climate perspective, the fact that the carbon is put in the ground and then becomes largely inactive for hundreds of years, but the studies are very good that the carbon is not going to be re-released like a lot of other dangerous ways that people are thinking of trying to sequester the carbon from our atmosphere. So I strongly endorse this, and I would be happy to share the work we did on it, although it's pretty technical, a couple of years ago for the Forest Service and US DOE.
Thank you very much, David. Lisa?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to understand this whole thing is to just realize that the biomass is hydrocarbon. You've got carbon, hydrogen molecules there. When you heat this stuff up, you're cooking the hydrogen out of the biomass. And that's what you're gonna burn to maintain the heat. Now, the thing is, I've got a friend that likes to make biochar. He'll build a fire and burn up a whole bunch of wood And then he'll get it down to coals and he puts a lid on it. And in the end, he gets a bucket full of biochar. And I laugh at his effort. I say, well, that's fine, except you're using third world methods to do it. And there's machinery we could invent that would, but what I'd like to see is something where you put the wood chips in one end and then it just continuously runs and you put chips in one end and you get piles on the other. So you're not making a batch, it's a continuous operation. But just get something that's, can be done on an industrial scale and work efficiently.
Thank you. Intriguing idea. Is there further discussion? Yeah, Michael?
So another element is a growing body of research showing that biochar can filter out pollutants from stormwater. So that's just like one more benefit that biochar has.
And it's just like we might use activated charcoal.
Sure, good point.
Yes, Jenny?
I just have a question to the person who said that there was controversy about biochar. What your documentation is, what the controversy is, what are the concerns people have, because I have not heard of this.
Thank you. Who was that raised the concerns on Zoom?
Pat?
Pat, can you give us any more leads on that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Again, I was very excited about this and thought this is just looks a great thing, but then found that there is indeed some controversy. I know those of you who have done the research on it are aware probably of some controversy. For example, there was quite a bit of talk about changing the pH of the soil when you use it as an amendment, things of that nature. I think that if we are going to say, yes, indeed, we want to have a biochar facility here on the island, we need to know what are the negatives, because there are some that are discussed. And again, how would we address those? But again, you've done the research and you would know any negatives much more than I.
Thank you very, very much. Any of you have researched this? Would you like, in the spirit of full disclosure, to talk about some negatives of biochar, perhaps?
I would comment that in the combustion control, in the pyrolysis is always, not a perfect thing. There's large installations in Oregon that are doing this associated with lumber mills, but the bigger it is, maybe the easier to control. So, I think you have to look very closely at what the exact product that you're going to install is, and look at what kind of emissions it might produce and how well that's controlled. I think it's also really important to do the research on the quality of the biochar that comes out, because the combustion completeness has to be controlled to get the right product out. So I'm not saying that it's perfection, it's like anything that we do, there can be, unforeseen circumstances. And I think that you have to investigate the exact proposal that would be made, but we should be encouraging King County. My point would be, we should be encouraging King County to do the groundwork that support this concept and to move it forward, because it has great potential.
Thanks. I think for the sake of time, we should move on, but I see your hand up, and I would also like to invite anybody to address the concern about pH in the soil. If you can do that. Yes, ma'am.
I believe you call this a point of order. What we're starting to do, we have quite a few things I'd love to get through. Just selfishly speaking, when we start debating, I was really glad to hear a brief synopsis of what biochar is and anything else that comes up that someone might not understand. But to enter into debate is not our function here.
Yeah.
We are trying to put a list of strongly suggested what Vashon would like to see King County add. We've been invited to do this. Do we want them, at some point, if biochar is a thing that's about to happen, there will be plenty of research and plenty of meetings here to discuss it.
Right.
Can we kind of focus so we can get through these items?
Thank you.
Thank you for that comment.
We're about halfway through the number of items.
Does
Yes.
someone want to address the concern about pH before we move on? Yes, Rob?
Yeah, I've talked with Pacific Northwest National Laboratories expert on biochar. Apparently there is an issue. There are lots of different sources of biomass that can be used. One of the issues with pH has to do with the wheat straw in a biomass operation, which can in certain soils change the pH in an undesirable way. So there are some limitations. It's kind of complex because there's the soil, there's the plant that you're growing, and there's also feedstock for the process. And there's interdependencies among those. So I think it's a fairly isolated case. We primarily would be using the forest waste and yard trimmings.
Thank you very much for that clarification, Rob. I'd like to move on to number 7, please.
Expand energy audit programs to improve building weatherization and programs that incentivize installation of electric heat pumps for space and water heating. And do I remember, James, correctly that you put the detail?
James, would you like to make a statement advocating for this?
Sorry,
James.
I'm in the woods and having trouble connecting. We're talking about number 7. The issue here, actually, Kevin, I didn't do that much research on this one.
Okay. I'd be happy to cover it if you'd like, James.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah,
James.
thank you.
We'll get somebody else to take that one.
Okay, so somebody in this room used to do building weatherization audits, Michael Laurie, and has recounted to us the history that those are not quite as detailed as they have been in the past. Buildings are our number 2 source and the fastest growing source of carbon emissions. And so the idea is that let's make sure to emphasize that. Electric heat pumps is the major shift going on to get away from fossil fuel to electric and highly efficient devices for heating air and water.
Thank you. Is there discussion of this?
I just want to say I think it's great.
Thank you, Jen. Further discussion? We'll move on to number 8.
Very similar, extend programs that incentivize switching to electric appliances to community-based and faith-based organizations. And Eric,
Really a lot of great programs for residential incentives, pumps and other high efficiency appliances. But there's a hole in the programs for community-based organizations, nonprofits, including faith-based organizations. So while the Methodist Church was quite successful in winning a grant for solar and storage, there's no opportunities for going to heat pumps, which is actually the much greater greenhouse gas emissions problem, burning natural gas, than replacing PSC electricity through solar. So it was a gap in what King County had written in the plan. And so we're saying, hey, don't forget about the community-based organizations, the nonprofits that need this too. So that was our push to get that.
Thank you, Eric. Michael?
I apologize to you for, I'm gonna go a little sidetrack here, but I feel compelled to do it. And that's that the federal tax credits for putting in a heat pump in your home and insulating your home and a variety of energy efficiency measures are going to go away in about 2.5 months at the end of December. So if you'd ever thought about putting a heat pump in or adding more insulation or anything in that category, do it now. Sign up for somebody to do it now, because it might take a while to get the work done before it all runs out at the end of December.
Thanks for the heads up, Michael. Is there further discussion of number 8? Yes, Jen?
Based on that, would it be worthwhile to discuss adding some language to, I don't know how to say this, like federal proof, the the granting and funding streams that, you know, so the King County looks for some way of supporting these tax breaks or incentives, programs and things like that that are not contingent on federal government. Given those things.
Thank you, Jim.
I don't know if that's appropriate or not.
Well, I think,
There's pretty strong language in the existing King County plan draft about doing whatever we can to protect the benefits of what's gonna be lost through federal.
Okay,
activity.
all right.
So that's a really good point, but we think the wording in there is
There.
strong.
Great.
Is there further discussion? 9.
number 9, develop programs that integrate home and vehicle electric batteries with the power grid. And I think James may have also looked at this, but
James, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, currently in the SCAP, it says that they want to focus on advocating for grid reliability, grid modernization, and providing grid flexibility. But all of this is done at the macro level. There's nothing in the current SCAP that addresses the micro level of the multitude of homes and vehicles with electric batteries that could be connected to the grid that would increase reliability, modernization, and grid flexibility. And so I don't remember who it was that mentioned earlier the difference between advocating and implementing. We are asking them to implement programs that would integrate or further integrate home and vehicle batteries into the grid.
Thank you. Is there discussion of this, Steve?
I'll just point out that PSC does have a flex battery program
Yes.
for existing batteries hooked up to their grid for the net metering. And you get $1,000 incentive to join the system. And then during the peak times, they will use your battery power, bring it down to 20%, and the next day your solar will regenerate what they use. And you're essentially using your own power. But you're giving them the flexibility to optimize the electricity use, so they don't have to bring electricity from far away to use it on the island. And so they're really moving in that direction already, but it's not part of the policy. This is a very small program. We just would like to see a lot more attention to this in our version of that.
Thank you, Steve. Further discussion? And please.
so Steve, you may as well stand up. Build local organic recycling facilities throughout the county.
So as I mentioned, King County has approved spending $5 million to build a Vashon Island compost facility. So we don't have to spend $300,000 a year to ship our organic waste to Cedar Grove and Maple Valley, and then spend all this money to bring it back as compost. We think that unfortunately King County has not done organic processing of compost themselves. They've always relied on the industry to do that. We would like to see a lot more community compost, local compost distributed around King County to increase the ability for people to recycle their organic waste locally. We'd say not have to ship everything so far, at great cost and great requirement. We think that distributed organic processing facilities are really sensible.
Thank you, Steve. Is there discussion of this item 10? Very well, we can skip 11, which was deleted. Please read 12.
Inspired by Michael Lowry's inputs, include water management programs like water conservation rebates, low water use laundry and dishwasher incentives, and soil amendment programs to increase groundwater retention. And Michael, you provided that initial input. I think James put together the final details. If I recall right.
Someone like to
Anybody
speak to
wants
this?
talk to what we're trying to do.
Spirit of proposing it.
Well, I could talk for a week on water, but I won't. But a lot of the things that save water, one way to look at this is energy, mostly. A lot of things that save water save energy. A lot of things that save water, use water more efficiently, do directly address climate change. So it's it should be a part of the plan, absolutely, looking at more efficient ways to use water.
Thank you, Michael. Is there discussion?
Question,
Yes,
does the, for those who did all the detailed review of the plan, does the plan speak at all to incentivizing water utilities to make rate bases that encourage conservation? You know, the reason I ask is because I moved recently from District 19 to Heights, and I look at their water rate base, and it's almost entirely fixed charges. There is no incentive for conserve water Heights. And I'm prepared to start the conversation. I don't know if this is appropriate to bring this in as an amendment, but the notion of rate basing for conservation is something we've done in energy for many years. And I was pretty shocked by what Heights is doing right now, from what I can see. So, Michael, if you have a comment.
yeah, Michael.
Well, I was on Heights board, and I pushed for that kind of thing more. And they claim, so this gets complicated, but they claim that they had so many fixed costs.
Yeah.
That's why they had to keep their rates that way. Whereas Water District 19, as you may know, has done it the whole other way. In other words, the more water you use, the more you pay per gallon, which is what Dave's talking about. And absolutely, whenever we can do it, we should be putting systems in place. But I think Heights is a little challenged.
Okay, so maybe we'll just
Thank you.
ignore my comment.
Well, we don't have to ignore it, but pick it up another time, because right now we should focus on the wording of item 12. Is there a discussion of that? Let's move on to 13 then.
Include virtual power plants described as collections of small power resources such as solar collectors, batteries, backup generators, interruptible loads that can be managed to provide reliable grid power at lower cost as a future-ready infrastructure option. Conduct a Vashon-Maury battery energy storage system siting analysis and assess installation of a 1 megawatt solar array at the Vashon transfer station.
Would someone like to advocate for this at the outset?
And I'm trying to call it, who summarized this one? I think, Rob, I would say, I think you've talked about the solar array, the
Rob?
Yeah, so
transfer station.
solar is, if you can point a piece of glass at the sun and make inexpensive power, it's a good deal. The transfer, the landfill there is land that is not suitable for most other uses. I did a quick calculation, it's indicate there's about a megawatt of photovoltaics there, which would be a pretty substantial hunk out of the power we use. So that's the thinking going there, and there has been some rumbling within the King County discussion that landfills are suitable places for solar. So we're not totally voicing the wilderness on that. The idea of virtual power plants is that utilities can't, the loads involved integrated or opportunities for conservation are so small that utilities customarily are not interested. If you can get somebody to aggregate them, then you can avoid the expense of new power plants, and you can make the system, the whole electrical grid, more resilient. And here on the island, I think we recently had concerns about resilience. And when the big one hits, for example, it'd be nice to have some generation here and a grid that could meet basic needs here to keep us going.
Right.
So that's the thinking.
Thank you, Rob.
The one thing I'd like to add, just in general about all of these things, is that our hope is to get these elements into King County's plan, and then to talk to King County about exactly how to implement those elements of the plan that apply to Vashon. If they're not in the plan, King County's not motivated to do anything. So our hope is to be able to have the conversation with them bringing up all of the issues that we've talked about here, but to be able to move forward.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on item 13? Yes, sir.
Well, I have a simple question, and that is, how much power does Vashon Island use on average? How many megawatts does Vashon?
I can send you the last 8 years of monthly power use. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I think it's does anybody remember offhand?
I don't.
But
It's much lower than, I think it's lower in terms of the average. But anyway.
I can send you the data if you're interested.
Yeah,
I can post it, in fact, it's public data now. They provided it. We can put it on the website.
Is there data that tracks what our greenhouse gas emissions are at?
There has been a
Yes.
algorithm that calculates based on our demographics, how much our average carbon footprint is, and on the order of 42 tons per household. But it's based on the Berkeley algorithm that is just based on our take home and number of.
So it's just kind of like a lot of us.
Totally efficient. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with allocating for our life. We have a goal to calculate our actual carbon footprint as part of our project.
So we have a baseline.
So we have a baseline, so we can measure and then improve it. So that's one of our long-term.
Thank you. The further discussion of item 13,
And
seeing none, we can move on to the second stage. of
well, there's a
entertaining
concluding,
Oh, you wanna read including,
the unnumbered one.
oh, right. Please go
Yes.
ahead.
Finally, the King County Strategic Climate Action Plan must include a clearly defined list of actions and their individual greenhouse gas emission reduction objectives, which together fully achieve the Climate Action Plan goal of a 95% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. Nicole, we're here. I would ask her to show the diagram that says, they have what they call a wedge diagram that says, here's what happens to your carbon emissions if we do nothing. And if we improve housing, it knocks it down. If we improve transportation, if we do this, we do this, we do this, do this. And it says, here's, we're going to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And there's about a 20% that says other activities. We searched through the climate action plan on those words, and there is no place they define the other activities. So we're kind of worried that they don't actually meet their goal. David.
Again, friendly amendment. In my past life as an energy publisher, working for an energy research publisher, the word was meatballs on top. To me, this phrase needs to be put in the header as opposed to at the bottom, because your point is they're not addressing, they're not fully addressing the need to meet goals.
I'm happy to rearrange and move this to a different section.
Rearranging it so that for this act moves to the top. It's clear that our concern that drives all these other requests is that actually they're not. From our analysis, I don't want to speak on behalf of those who spend all the time, but my understanding is they're not meeting goals. So put it up there and say it.
So I would propose then the friendly amendment would be to remove the word finally from this paragraph and just move the paragraph to in front of all the numbered items.
Is there objection to that, Jen?
Yeah, I don't know if this would be all related to either, but it seems to me that having a list and timelines and measurable benchmarks. I don't know if you want to add some kind of wordsmithing around that in there.
So to that point, the climate action plan is all over that.
Oh.
Yes, and so they specifically, when we went to the public meetings, they said, what exactly are the steps we would take and exactly how do we measure them and what are our goals? Yeah, so adding these in would basically add this additional content and it would be treated like all the other actions to give you, yes, very specific objectives, yeah, and timelines. You bet.
Yes.
Are we at a point now where we could add another action?
Well, I'm on the verge of going there, but I just want to pause a moment to see if there's any further discussion of this paragraph we've just been discussing. David?
I made a friendly amendment. Is there a second to support that?
No,
Yes.
Okay, second.
there was no,
Objection.
I thought I asked for objection and didn't hear any, so we can just do that.
Okay.
Thanks for the clarification. Okay, now we'll move into accepting amendments, related to any or all of this, and I know you're eager to do that.
Okay, I don't know if this would be an amendment or an additional, action.
That is an amendment. Adding an additional item would be one kind of amendment.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been coming to these meetings for a number of years and I keep pushing Kane County transportation people to reintroduce road maintenance here on Vashon. Now, if any of you have lived on this island for more than 50 years and you were old enough to have a meaningful memory of the chip sealing operations they used to do here on Vashon, then you would remember when we had very nice roads. Our roads were flat, smooth, and pothole free. And that came to an end right around 1980. Now, the first time I saw a Metro bus show up on Vashon Island. And anyway, I can't go anywhere without driving on a road busted fence now. And I have to slow my economy car down to a crawl so I don't break it on the road. And then when I'm driving on the highways, you know, except for the main highway, I have to drive maybe 10, 15 miles an hour less than the speed limit. You know, it's inefficient.
Could you please state what your amendment is?
That we ask King County to properly maintain our roads so that we're not gonna be busting up people's lightweight economy cars. And people can drive speed limits and just drive more efficiently. Okay, we'll be using less fuel and hence less carbon emissions. And, you know, a lot of people have older economy cars and they can't afford to just go out and buy new cars and what have you. You know, I'm in that position. I have the next door neighbor that's struggling. She has an economy car and you know, our cars are being destroyed by the roads. So if we have well-maintained roads, then our whole transportation system can be more efficient. It'll be friendly to alternative vehicles, especially lighter weight vehicles. I heard somebody talk about bicycle paths, you know, that could, you know, come into the road maintenance program. But you know, it's just important that the roads are flat, smooth, and pothole free, so you don't have to be dodging potholes, so you can be paying more attention to your driving.
Thank you for making the explicit connection to climate. I appreciate that. As I take it, your motion is to ask King County to properly maintain roads, which has numerous benefits, including those to climate. Is there a second?
No interest in both.
I do not see a second. However, that is very relevant to transportation. So I don't want to drop that from our consideration, even though it evidently will not be a part of this proposal. But that's another topic for the transportation committee that I urgently hope will be forming. Is there another amendment? Yes, Bill?
Yeah, I move that we drop item number 1. As I explained at the beginning of the meeting, I feel it's elitist, unfair to working people with old vehicles that can't afford to upgrade them. And that ferry lines are not the place to encourage more energy efficient.
Thank you, Bill. Those move that we drop item number 1. Having to do the Washington State Ferry commuters, priority loading procedures and other climate friendly transportation options. Is there a second?
Yeah.
And please remind me of your name. I didn't catch it to begin with. Jeff? Jeff? Schnell. Okay, thank you, Jeff.
NELC.
It's been moved and seconded that number 1 be dropped. Bill, I think you made, okay, thank you. I think you made your case for you in brief. I see there's a hand up. Tom, I don't see your hand now. Did you want to discuss this? Yes, Tom.
Yeah, I think it's unfair. I'd like to drop it.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Is there further discussion?
Yes, but there's other hands.
Yes, Jen?
Against the motion, I would suggest it doesn't actually explicitly say prioritization given to people with electric vehicles. So I think there's a lot of different ways that you can talk about climate friendly transportation options, including carpools, public transportation, the Metroplex, people on bicycles. I think that the assumption that this is an elitist measure is just that, it's an assumption. And I think maybe there could be language in there that says taking into consideration issues of equity or whatever. But I'm hearing that the overall plan has a lot of that language in it already. But I think it's sort of a putting what's the phrase I'm looking for, baby out with bathwater, to make the assumption that this is only about people with expensive electric vehicles. I don't see that. I don't read that into it at all.
Thank you, Jen. Rob?
Yeah, I would argue that in general, more wealthy people have larger cars and people on a budget have smaller cars. So I think the assumption is directly incorrect. And I would argue that one thing that could happen under this is that you get, if you have multiple people in the cars, they get in a lane and unloads first.
Like an HRV lane, like this.
We have HRV lanes, that's widely accepted. I think the ferry system should prioritize moving people rather than moving vehicles. Currently the system is very regressive. If you look at the fares between 14 feet and 22 feet, you see the people with the small cars pay a lot more for the amount of ferry they use than the people with that had the large pickup trucks that approach 22 feet, that 22-foot limit. So in fact, we're just have built in incentives that work against our goals of equity and our goals of lessening our carbon emissions. So I think that this element is sufficiently vague that there's flexibility in responding to the basic idea and ensuring that the equity goals that I think are just driven by the share period are addressed in the policy of the version.
Thank you, Rob. Is there further discussion? Jeff?
As I said earlier, I think the simplest way to deal with this would be to just charge by the size of the vehicle, what a vehicle length.
That is part of our recommendation.
Yeah, charge.
So you support part of this item, which is included. Yeah, okay.
So further discussion, the amendment to strike number 1.
I will say, just one for, the Climate Commitment Act, which is in the state of Washington, it charges polluters money so that we can address climate issues. And already the Climate Commitment Act has been used for many, many things, but one of them is to provide more access to public transportation for people who have trouble affording it. It could very well be that we could find opportunities to use that funding source to help address those equity issues that you mentioned, as opposed to seeing this in the light that has been depicted. But without the conversation, we would never have that chance to discover that. So that's why I would like to advocate that we retain it.
Thank you, Kevin. So further discussion? Yes, Bill?
Well, yeah, you've argued against my amendment saying it's vague, so it wouldn't, we don't know that it would actually harm poor people. I'd argue, on the other hand, it's vague enough that I have no idea what it would do. I don't know that it wouldn't harm people. I don't know if it would help cyclists. I don't know what it would do. So I'd argue it's duvet, just for
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am?
Responding to you, it's going to be firmed up though. This, think of this as, I hear your concern, but this is opening a door to the discussion. This is putting it on the table and allowing for people like yourself to say, what about this, what about this, what about this, and to further participate in the debate. This gives us the opportunity for the debate.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. The amendment is to strike item 1, to work with state agencies to incentivize Washington State Ferry commuters to use more climate-friendly transportation options through fares and priority loading procedures. A yes vote means to take that out and not have it be part of the proposal. All those in favor of striking number 1, please raise your hand. Jen, do you see 3 in the room? Raise your hand also on Zoom if you favor this. Striking number 1. I'm not sure if that was a.
If I could make.
Excuse me, Nicole. No, Nicole, I'm trying to count the vote here. There was a hand up on Zoom and it went down. I don't know whether to interpret that as a yes vote. Is a yes vote. So 1 on Zoom and we had 3 in the room. Is that right? So 4 in favor. All those opposed, please raise your hand.
Opposed to striking.
Yes, opposed to striking. Thank you. G at 15.
16.
Keep your hands up, please. You're at 15 again.
Are you counting me?
Huh?
Are you counting me?
Yeah, would you please stand if you're raising your hand? Yes, I got 16 this time. Thank you. Greg, I think you're blocked from my view. And then 10 on Zoom, it's 26 opposed. So 4 in favor, 26 opposed, is that correct? The amendment fails. Nicole, did you wish to say something?
Yeah, the specific language says through fares and priority loading procedures. It specifically states that those are what would be changed.
Thank you, Nicole. That's the amendment, as relevant as that may have been.
But to say that, you know, it's only opening the door, the language specifically states these 2 would be affected.
Your objection is noted, Nicole. Thank you. Is there another amendment? Other amendments? Jen?
I'm curious if there's interest in asking the county to establish charging facilities at the ferry parking lots on both ends so that people who are parking and commuting can charge there. We do have the elitists who have their electric cars to charge their electric cars while they're parked through the day.
For electric vehicle charging?
Yeah.
The Climate Action Plan has a substantial focus on increasing the number of charging stations, including on Vashon, because we've had that conversation with them. Yeah.
Yeah, and being late.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, nobody would have known that because we've gone through the 479 pages and we're commenting on the things that are missing. Yeah. And we felt very strongly that we didn't want to say, oh, you should add this into the plan. And they say, didn't you read page 219? Like, really? Yeah, okay, we read it, we went through it. So, yeah, but thanks for.
Are there other amendments? Rocky?
Well, to Kevin's point, perhaps this is already in the plan somewhere. So what I've drafted is redundant and unnecessary. Also wasn't for Michael, who's been working on stormwater issues on that. So is it okay if I just read this?
Yes, please do, Rocky.
What I just jotted. Implement established and innovative techniques to clean stormwater runoff and infiltrate clean water to increase groundwater supplies and enhance stream flows.
What was the last clause?
Enhance stream flows.
Stream flows. Thank you.
And I don't know the extent to which, Michael, I think what we did was took your inputs before the plan was released, so I can't comment. James may have looked into some of that, if I recall.
Hold on a
The
moment.
question is whether or not there's already content there.
Would you please give that wording to Jen?
Should I text it?
Sure.
So the amendment having to do with cleaning water and so on. I can't restate it perfectly right now, but is there a second to that?
Second.
Jen seconds that.
I have no objection to adding that word.
Kevin has indicated that he would accept that under mover's privilege as in effect a friendly amendment. Is there an objection to that?
I think we should read we should search for stormwater cleaning in the report to make sure that it's not already mentioned. Because I don't think we want to bring up items that have not been already mentioned.
Okay, well, we could make it provisional in that
Did you have a
way.
chance to look at the scout to see if it's already included? So I think it would be a good idea. So right now, the Groundwater Protection Committee has determined that we have a pretty stable water table on Vashon for the last 15, 20 years. Based on the limited number of wells that are being tested. So it's a very limited database. But we do believe that in the future climate change is going to impact our water supply because of droughts, limited rainfall. And so we do think it's going to be a future problem, but it isn't one now. Just so people are aware of that.
Eric?
Yes, in the plan, in the section called prep, or preparing for disaster preparation, items 13 through 19, called prep 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, all have the word stormwater in their language. And while they're not perfect, exactly what you said, and I'm not a stormwater expert, but definitely need to look at those. I can show them to you on my laptop.
Well, this is being considered. Let me use our time to see if there are other amendments. Yes, sir.
Yeah, when we first got together here, I asked Governor, why stop population growth isn't on this list of agenda. So I would suggest that we advocate for policies that would stop population growth in King County.
The amendment is to include an item to advocate for policies to stop population growth in King County. Is there a second? This been seconded. Would you like to, excuse me, Nicole, I'll recognize you in a moment. Would you like to make any fuller statement in favor of that as mover?
Say again, please.
Would you like to make any fuller statement as opposing that?
It would have to be in the form of a campaign, because I don't believe there should be any law that says that you can't have as many children as you want. But I think that it ought to be understood in our culture that if you have any children at all, you pay for your children. There's a lot of people that talk about, we're all in this together and we're all gonna, support families and children. ever since Ronald Reagan promoted pro-life and pro-family, I've been bored by it. I don't like it. I don't like what's happened here in Western Washington in the last 40 years. I never had any children myself because I didn't want to contribute to the growing population. And, you know, it's like, you know, we can discuss endless action items for the cleanup and preservation of the environment. But the one thing we can do that's gonna make more difference than anything else is stop population growth.
Thank you, Mr. Schnell. Nicole, you wish to say something?
Yeah, so historically, the narrative of population growth has been used to implement mass genocide programs. There's actually established groups that solely exist to implement these measures. The Club of Rome, for example, and part of that was one of the books that was published under the Club of Rome was written by Dr. Carl Ehrlich called The Population Bomb. And in this book, Dr. Ehrlich states that there's a population problem and that there's two measures that can be taken: birth rate solution and a death rate solution. And he explicitly states that powers that be have elected to take a death rate solution to this measure. So I strongly oppose any such language to be implemented by any governing body.
Point of order, point of order, we're debating a motion that does not have a second.
It does, no, Doug.
Oh, I'm sorry, Doug, I didn't see, so. Thanks, Nicole, for your comment. I did not realize that we were on that.
Yes, Bill?
Yeah, well, I think this requires more clarity. I mean, population growth is a function of four things in any given area. I think this is relative to King County, but it's also true for the country as a whole. It's a function of births, deaths, immigration, and emigration. I don't know the statistics for King County, but I would strongly suspect that our major source of population growth, at least in the last decade, has been immigration. Yeah. People moving here from other parts of the country. So I just need clarity if we want to address population growth. I don't know if we do, but if we do, we need to be clear. Are we talking about limiting births, increasing deaths, limiting immigration, or increasing emigration? I mean, those are the determinants of population.
Thank you, Bill. We have 5 minutes left, and I'd like guidance from the council whether to try and move to a vote on this tonight or to extend our consideration to the next meeting. I'll just say a straw poll, a show of hands of those who'd be in favor of coming quickly to a vote tonight. What?
Well, I had an amendment.
And those who would favor extending it to another meeting.
Being too fast.
So you prefer extending it to another meeting. However, there was a pretty strong sense that we should come to a vote on this if possible. Rocky, how does it stand on your proposed amendment? Are you going to withdraw that or?
I'm going to withdraw it because in looking at what Michael just showed me inside the King County plans and looking at the goals here, it's sort of kind of implied. It's not directly stated, but I think
it's close enough.
It's close enough.
So you're withdrawing that amendment.
Yeah, thank you.
So our options are to continue considering amendments or to move to a vote. So I'll make, Diane, did you have something to say?
Yes, I move that we extend the time of this meeting so that we can cover it and vote tonight.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, and you make that a certain motion, please.
I move that we extend the time of this meeting for an additional 15 minutes. So we have time to consider these amendments and vote on them tonight.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we extend this meeting by 15 minutes. Is there discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. $17.
19.
Oh, I got 19 this time. And 6 on Zoom. 25, all those opposed? Either no opposed or 1 opposed on Zoom, it's unclear to me. In any case, the motion passes to extend it for 15 minutes. Which would be, I take that to be until 9:15.
Yes.
We were discussing the population growth amendment, which was moved and seconded. Is there further discussion of whether we should include that in this one?
Discussions of population growth quickly become issues of social conscience and mores, religious values. I don't think that a government entity should take a stand on that. As for any number of reasons, we all are aware of the fact that there are more people on the earth than we can sustainably support. There are wars that are displacing people. These are matters of social conscience, and for groups to form to raise awareness, to educate on whatever issue, but it is not the place of government. Never will it be the place of government to take a stand on population concerns. If immigration is one of them, in this country, immigration is a difficult and an evolving situation that really speaks to our ideals as Americans. And I don't know where that's going, but I also know that we're talking about human beings. We are talking about the very personal right to have a child or a family. And this is not government. This is individual conscience. And yeah, sure, start a campaign to raise awareness. Zero population growth was one I remember from the 60s. It had a huge impact on me. I also chose not to have children for the same reason you did. But I also know that that's a deeply personal choice. And it's not my place to say you can or you cannot. We will learn or we won't in population explosion. I would be happy to have a sane discussion with anybody who wants to have a sane discussion, but that's rare. So I don't approve of including this amendment.
Thank you. Laura, did you wish to say something?
No.
Michael?
Well, I totally agree with what you said, and I used to be very worried about population explosion in the developed world. I'm not worried about it anymore because the fact is that our population is dropping and people are starting to panic about how quickly it's dropping. Other parts of the world are a different story, but it appears to be a correlation between as countries develop, their population growth starts to drop off.
Thank you, Michael. Is there further discussion? Jen?
I would just like to add to, I'm sorry, I can't remember.
I'm sorry, what is your name?
Julie? Yeah, not the place of government, and also we're just talking about King County. And we're talking about Vashon within King County. And all of these forces are so, the relationship between population and climate change within King County, I think is really difficult to put a pin on. So I don't even know, I respect that is an idea that a lot of people have, but I just don't see how that fits into this particular document that we're trying to finesse and send to King County.
Thank you, Jen. Jenny, were you going to? So further discussion, Doug?
Yeah, I tend to think that these 13 measures that we've been considering are really substitutes for coming to confrontation with population growth. Limiting population growth is not telling individual families what they can do or not do, any more than telling people they can get on a ferry or not in the morning. It's about letting the government set a group of incentives that will encourage a particular goal. And there's more than one way to do this. One way to do it is to set up 13 different categories of ways to limit climate change or even to reduce climate change. Another way is to limit population growth. I actually think limiting population growth might be the more effective means, but we had a much smaller population on. We didn't have the same problems that we have now with climate change. And it's partly because we're part of the globe and we have to deal with problems of China producing massive amounts of hydrocarbons in the air because they're using coal to produce electricity. But it's partly because we are a more populated island, we are a richer island, living in bigger homes than ever before. And we're encountering these problems and we're looking at ways to remedy them. But in fact, an easier way would be to turn the clock back, so to speak, have a smaller population, people living in smaller homes. Look around the island sometime and look at the age of houses. Newer houses are multi-million-dollar houses, and older houses, much smaller, are sometimes under $500,000. So we're talking about us as the problem. We're a wealthy community, we're producing lots of stuff, and we're producing lots of pollution. We're creating climate change as a consequence. And population growth and limiting population growth through means that where the government incentivizes, we've been using that term a lot, to smaller populations would be a way to do that. It's not about individual choice being limited any more than these measures are limiting individual choice. People can still ride passenger ferries or not. They can still install solar collectors or not. And the government's role is to incentivize a certain type of behavior that we believe is beneficial. And I think climate change is one of those things that we could incentivize.
If I may.
Thank you. Yes, Janet?
Already incentivized by the cost of raising families, by the economy. So we have much smaller families than we did 2 generations ago because they're so expensive. And that's what's happening. It doesn't have to be a government mandate.
JC, could I call for the vote? I suspect that the community is probably able to come to the conclusion.
There's some more hands that have been raised and discussion's not finished yet.
Okay.
There's 2 on Zoom.
Jeff, did you wish to speak? I thought I saw you raise your hand. Well, perhaps I was mistaken about that. Is there further discussion on this item?
There's 2 on Zoom.
Very well, Melvin? Thank you.
Yes, I'm opposed to this amendment, adding number 14. I think population control is a world problem. It's not a King County problem. For King County, we're getting more people because of the global warming migrants that are coming into our country, into our area, because we have better climate than a lot of the United States. And the other people that are coming in are migrants. And we're trying to be friendly to immigrants. And so I think this is not something that we should have in here for King County. This is something that should be worked on at a more global position through Congress or whatever to, I mean, you have abortion control and that kind of stuff that's going on. So I'm just saying I'm opposed to adding this to this whole motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Melvin. Harry?
I'm also opposed because I think in a democracy, controlling human behavior is not appropriate. And I think what the county is doing now, the best thing they can do is growth management, which they are already doing. And I think that's a more realistic way of approaching this because I don't think they're going to stem the tide.
Thank you, Terry. Is there further discussion? If not, we'll come to a vote. A yes vote here is to include an additional point to advocate for policies to stop population growth in King County. All those in favor, please raise your hand. I see 2 in the room. Is that what you get, Jen? I see none on Zoom. All those opposed, please raise your hand. 16, Jen? So, sub to 18.
18.
You need to raise your hand too, Jen, if I'm got it. And 12. So 2 in favor, 20 opposed. Motion to amend that way fails.
18 plus 12, 30 of those.
I'm sorry,
30.
put my math off, getting tired. Thank you. What's the final tally?
2 opposed, 2 in favor, 30 opposed.
2 in favor, 30 opposed, motion fails. Are there any further amendments at this time?
Yes, I have one.
Yes, Nicole?
Yes, I would like King County to implement research and development programs for the development of wireless power transmission systems.
For what kind of power transmissions?
Wireless power transmission systems.
You want King County to implement
Research and development
research and
program.
development for wireless power systems,
Transmission systems, yeah.
wireless power transmission systems.
Mhm.
Is there, the motion is to call for King County to conduct research and development into wireless power transmission systems. Is there a second?
We're searching to see if it's in SCAP already right now.
Well, Nikola Tesla envisioned the system over a century ago. And it's due to pressures from, corporate elite, these systems were never implemented. Right, because you can't control wireless power. I can give another example, and this is also in his Colorado Springs notes, which were written in 1899, where he, demonstrated wireless power. But another one is, he also clearly demonstrated how you can suppress fire with electromagnetic radiation. And in 2008, the United States Department of Defense, Defense Advanced Research Project Agency had the instant flame suppression program, which was successful. And yet we do not use this technology at all, even though it is completely viable.
Thank you. Steve, did you find any mention of it?
Eric searched and he didn't find any mention.
No. I'm looking for a second to this motion. Terry and Virginia, are you seconding the motion? I think not.
No. I was just going to say that I was going to add to the discussion of that.
Okay, hold off, please, Terry.
Okay.
A second.
I don't see a second, Nicole. However, I think this would be fine. Both would be fine items to include for consideration our technology response, watch and response committee.
Yes.
And we can make a stronger case for it than right now. I think people are unprepared to deal with those details right now. Are there further amendments suggested tonight, David?
I would recommend changing the phrasing of item number 6. I would say to include programs to study biochar technology and advance those that are effective and safe. I'm just founding that with the considerations of the state of development of biochar systems in the context of our community. So I'm not sure how to phrase that. Let me try it once again. Sorry not to waste your time. Include programs to research state-of-the-art of biochar and advance those that appear safe and appropriate for Vashon-Maury. Or no, for King County. King County. Sorry.
So you're advocating to amend item 6 to study state of the art, to research state of the art programs for biochar.
Biochar technology and advance those that are safe and appropriate for King County. Is that the piece of?
Would you accept that as a friendly amendment?
I would want to ask Rob and Steve, if they would accept that as a friendly amendment. Good.
Is there objection to accepting this as a friendly amendment? Seeing none, that's accepted. Terry, is what you were going to say so relevant for the council?
I just had my hand up while Nicole was discussing that particular item. And I just was going to say that early on, the reason why Tesla's plan didn't go forward was there was no way of metering that power and charging anybody for it.
That's
So
the
that
point.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's very consistent with what Nicole was saying. Thank you for that clarification,
Yeah.
Terry. Are there further amendments? Seeing none, I believe we're ready to come to a vote on the proposal as a whole, including the friendly amendments. Would there be objection to proceeding to a vote without reading it in its entirety? Very well. All those in favor of the motion to Vashon-Maury Community Council regarding the draft King County Strategic Climate Action Plan, please raise your hand. (18) 18 plus 11 is 29. All those opposed? One in the room and one on Zoom is 2.
I don't think James is.
Hmm?
I don't think James is voting against it.
Oh,
That would surprise me.
oh, it is James. James, you put your hand down, please. You're not voting against it?
He has a connection problem. He's camping in the
It's
woods.
29 in favor, 1 opposed. It passes. Thank you, everyone, for your work on this and consideration.
If I could just do a quick thank you.
I would just like to add, really thank those that have done the deep work here. That's a lot of work to go to a SCAD. I know from experience that this is really helpful. So thank you.
Thank you, David. And Kevin, did you wish to say something?
What did you say, Steve?
It's close to 800 pages, including the appendix.
Thank you for the work. Thank you for sifting through all of that.
That's something.
I also want to thank everybody for this conversation. We envision that as this plan gets approved by King County, we want to be talking to King County about what it means for Vashon-Maury Island. And every voice who was raised tonight has a seat at the table and more. So as we move forward, we will be creating that future of how we address this climate crisis. And so we invite substantial participation so we get it right. So thanks for all the comments and observations. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kevin. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Move to second. All those in favor of adjourning, please raise your hand. All those opposed? By acclamation, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much for your consideration tonight and your attention.
Thank you, Nicole, for proposing we have this meeting.